my loves, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new. Today I have another paranormal story time for you guys because I have had so many requests for one here recently. I know you guys love these videos and you love to be scared just like yours truly, and unfortunately, or fortunately in some people's eyes, I have an unlimited supply of weird and scary paranormal things that have happened in my life. This particular set of stories I'm going to tell today, because they're kind of smaller paranormal stories I'm going to tell in this video, all revolve around my family's cabin in up northern Michigan, in the very upper peninsula of Michigan. My family has a cabin and we've had it pretty much my entire life. Before we get into the story today, I want to really quickly give a huge shout out and thank you to the sponsor of today's story time, which is Audible. Now, if you've never heard of Audible before, you might be living under a rock, not gonna lie, because it is the biggest selection of audiobooks, audio shows, comedy. Since you guys enjoy my story times, and even more so here recently, my story readings of creepy things that I find online, I thought that Audible would be a perfect recommendation because you can pretty much listen to stories anywhere you go. I'm super busy all the time, obviously, and I know you guys are too, whether you're going to work or to school. You probably don't have a lot of free time during the day, and Audible makes it really easy to indulge in books and other things that you might not normally get to enjoy if you had to actually sit down and read them word for word. If you are looking for a book recommendation, I thought that I would recommend Stephen King's Bazaar of Bad Dreams. I am currently listening to this one myself, and I'm really excited about it because it's kind of a collection of shorter, creepy, weird stories, a lot like my videos pretty much. You guys can actually listen to that book or any book for free because Audible is giving you a free 30-day trial. You can use my link down below. It is just audible.com/Loey. Thank you so much to them for supporting my channel and just letting me continue to do what I love to do, which is tell weird stories from my life to the internet. Alright, so kind of a little bit of background and prefacing before we get into this is that this cabin, like I said already, has existed within my family for years. It's technically owned by my aunt and uncle, but pretty much everyone in my family, my grandparents, my parents, my other aunts and uncles go up there all of the time. The cabin was not a house that was purchased. The plot of land was purchased, and then my aunt and my uncle pretty much built the cabin from scratch. It has always just been known as the cabin in our family. We've gone there to ride our dirt bikes, like pretty much every summer. We would head up to the upper peninsula of Michigan and take a week to literally disconnect. There was no cell service, there was no internet service. For a long time, we did not have electricity or running water in that cabin. So it really was like glorified indoor camping. And it was so fun. I remember those being the best times of my childhood, just pretty much running around, not concerned with anything. Even as I became a teenager, I would kind of be miffed about not having cell service like the first couple of days when we got to the cabin, but then it was so nice to like unplug from the world and not think about boys or schoolwork or drama or anything like that. So I have always really enjoyed my time up there, but of course there was always kind of that underlying like creepiness about it, if we're being totally honest. My ring light is a little bit bright. I'm gonna turn this puppy down. Oh, that's too dark. How's that? A little bit better? Oh, I can see again. It's a new world. I remember always being a little bit creeped out by the cabin when I was a kid, and I think it really is just that you're in the middle of nowhere in the woods. My family always had a lot of rules for the kids, like myself and my cousins, we were in the cabin or up in the upper peninsula in general. You know, we couldn't really run off without being supervised, whereas normally we could play and no one had to watch us. It's a huge world up there. There's no self-service, there's no nothing, and if we got lost, we would be impossible to find. So there were a lot of really strict guidelines on us as kids, and I mean, you would hear coyotes at night just constantly howling and making noises in the middle of the night, which doesn't exactly help with that spooky atmosphere, you know. I remember we would oftentimes be sitting at the campfire and hear coyotes like howling off in the distance, and sometimes they would get a little bit too close. My parents would make the kids go inside. One time in particular, we were like literally like outside roasting marshmallows. We made s'mores a lot. Actually, one of my stories is about that. But we would make s'mores a lot outside, and one time we were listening to like the coyotes howl and stuff, and it was just a really peaceful night, and they got kind of closer and closer, and you could hear them louder and louder as they did this. and then it literally sounded like one was like right in our ear, like maybe like 4 feet away from us. My parents just like grabbed everyone and threw them inside. I think another reason the house felt so, or that plot of land in general just felt so creepy, is you would hear people talking well before my family ever got neighbors at that cabin. Like no one lived around for miles and miles, and if they did, they were never there. It was everyone's vacation home, you get what I mean? Like it's where they went when it was too hot to deal with normal Michigan in the middle of the summer. It was always like 60 degrees up in this like part of the world, even in the dead of summer. It was so nice. But you would hear people talking and there would be like no one around, and it would always be very like muffled. You couldn't hear where it was coming from. So kind of like weird and creepy. And I think there were just little things like that, you know, like creaks in the middle of the night. You're in the middle of the woods totally alone. I was just always a little bit sketched out. One thing that reoccurred that I wanted to start off with right off the bat, because I don't have a particular like set story about this. There was a bottom story and then there was a top story. And the top story was really more like an attic, for being totally honest, like so tiny. Literally there was a bed on one side of the room and a bed on the other, and that's all you could fit. There was kind of like an open space in the middle. I don't really know why that was, but there was not a lot of second story, if you get what I'm saying. Like literally enough room for a bed to be on this side, the staircase, a big open plot where, you know, there was like no floor essentially, and then the other bed. And for a long time the kids weren't allowed up there because there was nothing really guarding that like open area, if that makes any sense. We could have just rolled out of bed, rolled right off the stairs, like it wasn't a good thing. They got the railing put in, but before that the kids always had to sleep downstairs, and I would always wake up in the middle of the night feeling like I was being watched, feeling like I had felt something shake me awake. And I really at this time was a pretty heavy sleeper. Like now in life I'm a really light sleeper, but at this point in my life I slept like a rock, like nothing could wake me. And I would always wake up thinking I heard something, or just feeling like I was being watched, just always super creeped out. Then when I was older, and like the railing got put in the upstairs area, and the kids would sleep upstairs on air mattresses and beds and stuff. Depending on how many kids were there, how much of our family was there, we would always either all just like bunk in one bed, or some of us would be in sleeping bags on the floor now that the railing was put in and stuff. But when no one was downstairs, when like all of the kids were upstairs, we were all way too scared to go down, we would go downstairs and things would just be switched around. Like sometimes the pillows would be off of the couch for no reason, and no one had gone downstairs all night. This wasn't someone in our family like playing a joke or thinking this was funny by any means, because a couple of us got our booty smacked for it a couple of times. Like we knew that we were gonna get in trouble if we just went downstairs and like wreaked havoc all over the floor. So none of us were really doing that. I really believe that as well. Like neither me, my brother, nor my cousins were going downstairs and just like tearing pillows off of the couch or opening windows on our own or whatever it might be. Like one time I remember we went downstairs, and this was before there was running water or anything, so we were constantly using like styrofoam bowls and things like that to eat out of, and they were all over the place, and no one was bringing dogs up there at this point in time anyways. It was so weird, but things would always be like messed up in the morning. For years we did not have running water, so it was just an outhouse outside of the cabin. If you don't know what an outhouse is, Google it, porta potty, whatever. So but it was actually like a really like not nice, outhouses aren't nice, but you get what I mean. Like it's not one of those plastic ones, because it was like permanent. It's still up there today. Like it's just like a wooden outhouse. And so we would go outside in the middle of the night to go and use it. And we were really young. We had to wake up an adult to go with us. But as we slowly got older and older, my mom would be like, don't wake me up, just go pee if you have to go pee. And sometimes I would drag my cousins with me. Sometimes I could not get them to get out of bed. So this one was probably when I was a little bit older, because I didn't wake up my mom to go with me to go to the outhouse in the middle of the night. So I wake up, I have to pee, I go outside, and as I'm doing my business, I hear someone start making some kind of sound. And at this point, I can't really hear what it is. I can just hear like something. I don't know if it's talking, I don't know if it's singing, I don't know if it's growling, but I hear it. And along with that, I hear leaves rustling. And so I'm like, okay, that's weird. And it gets a little bit louder, and I'm like, Mom, like I yell, Mom, and no one answered me. And so I continue to pee, do my business. I'm still out there, and I'm finishing up, but that noise is getting louder and louder and louder. And the thing is, it never broke. It was a continuous humming. And as it got closer and louder, I could tell that it sounded like a person just like humming one long note, like, And the reason I say that is because like if it was an animal, it would have broken. Like if it was like a growl or something, like you don't just growl for like 2 minutes straight, you get what I mean? It just sounded like someone was humming. And I could hear something moving right outside of the outhouse. Now, the door wasn't like flushed shut to the actual building, so I could see outside. And I'm thinking, like, to be perfectly honest with you, I thought it was one of my cousins playing a joke on me. And so I didn't say anything, but I just listened, and I continued to almost hear what sounded like someone like pacing around the outhouse that I was literally going to the bathroom in. And it sounded just like they were humming one long note the entire time. Now the thing was, I could hear it from like all sides of me, but when I looked outside, there was nothing there. Like when I looked through the little crack, there was no one standing there, nothing. And so after like, I would say like a minute and a half, 2 minutes of this, I'm finally like, okay, this is weirding me out and I don't want to say anything. So I finally decide I'm going to just run for the door, and I have myself like ready to go. Like I've unlocked the door and I'm ready to push it open, and I push it and I run straight for the house. But when I look back, there's no one there. And the minute that I came out of the outhouse, the humming stopped. And I wound up waking up my dad. He immediately went outside, but there was no one there. My cousins were still asleep in bed. And there was like no sign of anyone there. There were no like footsteps, no signs of an animal, nothing like that. This is a story from when I was much younger, and actually my mom told it to me not that long ago, and it was kind of interesting because I certainly did not remember it. When I remembered these sort of scary stories about the cabin, I kind of like pried at my family to see if they had any like weird encounters that they remembered, and this was one that my mom told me about. When we were kids, like I said, roasting marshmallows was kind of a thing. There wasn't a ton to do at the cabin in the middle of the night, obviously. So we would make s'mores a lot. We would sit around the fire a lot. We would just kind of like hang out and exist a lot. And this particular night we were making s'mores, and I was very young, like 5 or 6, maybe 7. And this was, again, before the cabin had any electricity, I think, no running water, nothing like that. This was also in a time frame where no one was really living where we were, like not in our general vicinity. I say that because over the course of the last like 25 years, of course, people have moved in kind of close. Like now they're actually neighbors where that cabin is and things like that. But yeah, like no one was living around us at this time frame. We wouldn't see anybody unless we specifically went into the town that was like literally 20 minutes away. No one was around, and we were literally just sitting there roasting marshmallows. And apparently I started waving, like across the fire I started waving, and no one was standing in front of me. And my dad kind of like looked at me and looked off to where I was waving, and there was no one over there, no animals, nothing. But I was waving like I had seen somebody. And he asked me like, hey, what you waving at? Like, what are you doing? And I said that I was waving at the man with the glasses. And apparently I was like looking off into the woods, and I saw a man with glasses on standing there and waving at me. And so I started waving back. And at that point, like my dad just like grabbed all the kids and like took us inside and went off into the woods to go and see. But as there always was in these situations, there was no sign of anybody. There was no one around. Like he didn't find any traces of a man. No glasses, nothing, you know what I mean? And I think the weirder part too was my dad, like, you know, I was a kid, so he kind of like tried to rationalize it out, but there was nothing that would have looked like a man with glasses. Like I kept reiterating that it was a man with glasses, it was a man with glasses. And he said to my mom later, like, obviously that meant like I could see his face, and there was no tree waving, nothing like that. Like it wasn't the light playing tricks on me. I saw somebody standing there and waving at me, and so I waved back. Now the last story I can think of, the last creepy story I can think of, and granted, I think it's interesting because a lot of these, like a lot of childhood stories, you kind of forget until something jogs your memory, or you don't even think about them as like being interesting enough for a story time until you're like, wait, like this happened and this happened. So maybe there will be like a cabin, like a haunted cabin part 2 if I can remember any others, and I'll talk to my family and see if they have any stories. But the last one was pretty weird, and this was when we had electricity in the cabin, but I don't remember why. My dad and my brother and I were all downstairs and my mom was upstairs. I think that we were like going to do something, like we may have been watching a movie or something, because again, we would have had electricity at this point, but I don't know why. We were just all downstairs. My mom was upstairs. She hated our shenanigans, apparently. So we were downstairs, we were watching this movie, show, whatever it was that we were watching, and I guess we just fell asleep while we were watching it, and I distinctly remember waking up in the middle of the night, having to go to the bathroom, taking the flashlight to the outhouse, coming back, and the TV had been shut off. Whether my dad shut it off, whether it shut off by itself, whatever it might be. I went back to sleep after going to the bathroom, and when I woke up again, it was because Star Trek was playing. I don't remember if we were even watching Star Trek that night. I kind of feel like we weren't. So this was not a situation where we had cable or anything like that. You had to switch in and out like DVDs, I think we're at this point. Either VHSs or DVDs. I think it was DVDs. So we were like switching those in and out, and I don't remember what we were watching, but I feel like it wasn't Star Trek. But I woke up to, at full volume in my ears, like the Star Trek opening, like space, the final frontier. You know what I mean? Like it was loud. It was so loud. It was like shaking the house. And I woke up, my brother just started bawling. He was so scared. And my dad like shot up like a rocket. Like he thought someone had broken into the house. And he starts looking everywhere for the remote. He didn't like roll over on it. It was on the floor like a million feet away from all of us. So the TV came back on in the middle of the night, and Star Trek just started playing at full volume when no one was laying on the remote, when that wasn't the volume that we left it at. And it was so, so scary. Like it just came on, and like all of us were just completely and totally shaken up, because there was no reason for it to happen, and especially not at like that volume. Like the volume on the TV was all the way up, and it was so freaking scary. But that's all I can remember for right now. Let me know if you guys want a haunted cabin story part 2. We'll definitely ask around and see if there are any other stories my family would let me share. And yeah, if you guys like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I love you guys so much, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye!